Princess Kaelith had perfected the art of looking engaged while planning her escape. She nodded at Lord Varen's comparison of her beauty to a weapon capable of conquering worlds, smiled at his presentation of rare minerals from the obsidian reaches, and mentally catalogued the fastest route to the service wings once this ceremony finally ended. Around them, the luminous court lived up to its name. Walls of living crystal refracted Thessara's sunlight into patterns that were probably meant to inspire awe, but mostly gave her headaches. "Your wisdom is matched only by your grace," Varen continued, which was code for "I've researched which complements work on other princesses, and I'm hoping you're generic enough for the same approach." Kaelith's long ears caught the calculated rhythm of his speech, the practiced pauses, the way he angled himself to ensure the assembled courtiers witnessed his performance. This wasn't courtship. This was political theater with her as the prize. "Your gifts honor me, Lord Varen," she replied, the diplomatic formula that meant absolutely nothing. Her mother, Empress Saurith, watched from the throne with an expression Kaelith had learned to dread, the look that said they'd be having a serious conversation about duty and succession very soon. 47 suitors rejected in 2 solar cycles. The Empress's patience had limits, and Kaelith was testing them. The ceremony concluded with traditional blessings. Kaelith escaped the moment protocol allowed, shedding attendants like unwanted cargo as she descended through the palace's vertical geography. The service wings smelled different, recycled air and industrial cleaner rather than imported incense. Real work happened here, by people who didn't perform elaborate bows every time she passed. She turned a corner and nearly collided with a human in work coveralls, methodically cleaning the bioluminescent floor panels with what looked like genuine concentration. He glanced up, said, "Excuse me, ma'am," and stepped aside to let her pass. That was it. No elaborate greeting, no recognition, just basic courtesy like she was anyone else. Kaelith found herself stopping, watching him return to his work with the focus of someone who actually cared about clean floors. "You're very thorough," she said, because apparently she'd forgotten how normal conversation worked. The human looked up again, smiled easily. "These panels are tricky. You've got to use the right solution or you damage the bioluminescence. Took me a week to figure out the proper technique." His name tag read Sullivan. "You new to this sector, haven't seen you around." "I work in administrative offices," Kaelith managed, "still learning my way around." "Well, welcome to the bowels of the palace. It's less fancy down here, but the people are genuine." He grinned. "Plus, the cafeteria food is actually better. The fancy stuff upstairs looks great but tastes like decorative disappointment." Kaelith laughed, actually laughed for the first time in weeks. Sullivan returned to his cleaning, humming something off-key, treating her exactly like any other person he'd encountered. The casual normalcy of it felt revolutionary. James Sullivan had been on Thessara for 4 months and still found the whole situation hilarious. He'd signed up for a diplomatic exchange program showcasing human technical expertise, expecting to work on atmospheric processors or water reclamation systems. Instead, a bureaucratic mix-up landed him in sanitation. Most people would be insulted. Sullivan found it perfect. "Someone's got to keep these floors clean," he explained to Key during their 3rd encounter, when she'd worked up courage to actually start a conversation instead of just watching him work. "Besides, I get to see parts of the palace tourists never access. The infrastructure down here is incredible. Whoever designed your water reclamation system was a genius. The way it integrates with the tidal processors. Beautiful engineering." Key looked startled. "You studied the water reclamation system." "It's fascinating, the efficiency ratios alone," Sullivan caught himself. "Sorry, I get excited about plumbing, it's a problem." "No, it's—" Key smiled, that genuine one that transformed her whole face. "It's refreshing. Most people find infrastructure boring." They fell into habit. She'd appear during his evening maintenance rounds. They'd talk while he worked. Conversations ranging from Thessaran architecture to Earth weather patterns to their respective families' impossible expectations. Key worked in administration dealing with family pressure about career advancement. Sullivan's sister back on Earth kept sending letters asking when he'd get a real job. They bonded over the universal experience of disappointing relatives. Why sanitation specifically? Key asked one evening, watching him calibrate a cleaning drone, if you could work on anything. Sullivan considered this. People underestimate maintenance work. Everything falls apart without it. Grand gestures are impressive, but it's the daily small stuff that actually holds things together. Plus, maintenance staff are invisible in the best way. People talk honestly around us. You see the real workings of a place. He glanced at her. Why administration? You seem like you'd be good at something more. I don't know, dynamic. Family expectations, she said quietly. Sometimes what you're supposed to do and what you want to do are completely different things. Sullivan understood that more than she knew. Well, for what it's worth, I think you should do what makes you happy. Life's too short to spend it meeting other people's expectations. Easy advice to give. Harder to follow, especially when Key left that evening looking troubled, and Sullivan realized he was getting attached to someone he knew almost nothing about, not even her full name. The grand selection announcement hit the palace like a shockwave. Kaelith stood in the Empress's private chamber, listening to her mother explain political necessity with the patience of someone who'd had this conversation too many times. 3 remaining suitors, Sareth said, all politically advantageous, all acceptable matches. You will choose one at the ceremony in 14 days, or you will abdicate your succession rights. I will not allow personal indecision to jeopardize Thessara's stability. Kaelith wanted to argue, but what could she say? That she'd rather spend time with a human janitor than the galaxy's most powerful leaders. That conversations about water reclamation felt more meaningful than strategic military alliances. It sounded absurd even in her own head. She attended the mandatory preparation sessions, etiquette reviews, political briefings, wardrobe consultations. At night, she escaped to the service wing, where Sullivan taught her the meditative art of cleaning curved glass, and made her laugh with observations about palace politics from a maintenance perspective. The observation dome is my favorite assignment, he said one evening as they worked side by side, Kaelith's technique terrible but improving. You get to see the twin moons rise over the crystal ocean. Makes you remember there's beauty in the universe, beyond political drama and career stress. They watched the moons ascend, and Kaelith felt the weight of approaching decision pressing down. Sullivan sensed her mood shift. You okay? You've seemed stressed lately. Family situation, she said carefully. Big decision coming up, life-changing. Anything I can help with? Yes, she thought. You could be someone I'm allowed to choose. Out loud, she said, just tell me something real, something true about you that you don't usually share. Sullivan was quiet for a moment. I took this assignment because I wanted to prove something. That humans could contribute meaningfully to interspecies cooperation, even in small ways. That worth isn't just about status or impressive credentials. It's about doing your work well and treating people with respect. He smiled self-consciously, probably sounds naive. It sounds perfect, Kaelith whispered, and realized with terrible clarity that she'd fallen in love with exactly the wrong person at exactly the wrong time. The state banquet was supposed to showcase Thessaran hospitality before the grand selection. Kaelith sat at the high table in full ceremonial regalia, flanked by the 3 finalist suitors, when the overhead lighting malfunctioned. Guests murmured as shadows flickered across the hall. The master of ceremonies signaled for emergency maintenance. Kaelith saw Sullivan enter through the service door, toolkit in hand, and watched her 2 worlds collide catastrophically. His eyes found her at the high table, the crown, the formal robes, the elevated position, and understanding crashed across his face like a wave. The woman he'd been teaching to clean windows was Princess Kaelith. Key didn't work in administration. She was the grand selection subject. Sullivan's expression shuddered. He completed the repair with professional efficiency, bowed precisely as protocol required, and disappeared without meeting her eyes again. For 3 days, Kaelith searched for him. He'd requested sector reassignment, citing inappropriate familiarity with administrative personnel in his transfer request. The careful phrasing broke her heart. He was protecting her reputation while removing himself from her life. She finally tracked him down in the deep maintenance levels, reorganizing supply closets with unnecessary intensity. "You lied to me," he said without turning around, voice flat. "I understand why. You're a princess. I'm a janitor. There's no universe where this works and you needed, what? Entertainment, novelty. I needed someone to see me as a person instead of a political asset," Kaelith shot back. "Every conversation we had was the most honest part of my life. You want to know why I lied? Because the moment people know who I am, they stop being real. But you taught me about water reclamation systems and made jokes about cafeteria food and treated me like I mattered for reasons that had nothing to do with a crown." Sullivan finally faced her. "What do you want from me, Kaelith? I have to choose someone in 3 days. I'm terrified I'll spend my life wondering what could have happened if I'd been brave enough to choose what I actually want." "And what do you want?" "You," she said simply. "But I need to know if that's possible, if you could forgive the deception, if you'd even want this life." Sullivan stared at her for a long moment. "This is insane. You're a princess. I clean toilets. You maintain infrastructure that keeps this entire palace functioning. You understand that consistent care matters more than grand gestures. You see worth in work that others dismiss." Kaelith stepped closer. "I've met 47 suitors who offered me power, territory, and strategic advantage. Not one of them offered me what you did, genuine respect and honest conversation. So yes, this is insane, but I'm asking anyway." The grand selection ceremony arrived with crushing pageantry. 3 suitors stood in the hall: Lord Varen with his military might, Commander Thex with territorial offers, Ambassador Rylan with economic projections. Each one objectively perfect, each one wrong. Kaelith stood before the assembly and spoke about leadership requiring wisdom to recognize worth in unexpected places, about how the most important work is often least celebrated, about genuine respect versus performed flattery. Then she named James Sullivan as her chosen consort. The hall erupted. Suitors protested, courtiers gasped, but Sullivan stepped forward from where he stood with service staff, because he'd come despite everything. "Your Highness," he said formally, then softer, "are you sure? I'm about to make this awkward for everyone. I've never been more certain." The Empress rose, silencing the hall. "Why should I approve this?" Sullivan met her eyes steadily. "I can't offer military strength or economic advantage. What I can offer is that I see your daughter as a person before a princess. I'll support her not because it benefits me, but because I genuinely believe she's remarkable. If that's not enough, I respect your decision, but I won't pretend otherwise." Sareth studied him, then looked at her daughter's hopeful face. "Approved," she said. "Let Thessara show the galaxy that we value character over empty credentials." Lord Varen stormed out. Several delegations withdrew, but others congratulated them, some seeming relieved that someone finally chose authenticity over political advantage. Months later, there in the observation dome, Kaelith still terrible at cleaning glass, Sullivan laughing while demonstrating technique again. Visiting dignitaries passed by, scandalized to see their princess doing manual labor. Kaelith